Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the 8th round of the 2024 FIDE World Chess Championship taking place in Singapore and being played between Liren from China and Gukesh from India. Now, this match has been really topsy-turvy, a lot of very exciting games. Of course, none more dramatic than yesterday's epic draw where Gukesh was pushing the whole way, but Ding was able to save it miraculously. So after this magic save from Ding, the match remains tied. They're deadlocked at 3.5 points each after 7 games. And now we go into the 8th game with Ding having played 3 games with the black pieces or 4 games with the black pieces and 3 games with the white pieces. Now, one way that this match has been very unusual is that it feels like Ding has been trying to win with the black pieces and be very safe and calm and just go for the classic Ding chilling and make his draws with the white pieces. But sooner or later, something has to give, and I have a feeling that Ding is going to want to be aggressive here and try to do something special today. So the game starts out with the move c4 here, and now we get this move e5, and we get the move knight c3. Now this, of course, is the English opening being played by Ding here. It's something that came as a very slight surprise to me. It was one of the 2 most likely options, I thought, but the only reason it surprised me is that it is something where the play is not fixed, meaning that your opponent has a wide variety of systems. They can play bishop b4, they can go knight f6, c6, all these different possibilities. So we get the move bishop to b4 being played here by Gukesh, and now Ding plays the move knight d5. Now after knight to d5, we get this move bishop to e7. This is still relatively new theory, but it's interesting how Gukesh decides to take the game in a new direction and not follow his great predecessor, the 5-time world chess champion Vishy Anand from India, who actually played this move bishop c5 a couple of times against that famous streamer guy Hikaru back when he was trying to be a professional chess player. So we get bishop e7 in this game, and now Ding plays the move knight to f3, and now we get this move d6 being played. After d6 is played, we get this move g3, and now Gukesh plays the move c6. After c6, we get knight takes bishop, knight takes knight, and now the move bishop g2. Now, on first glance, you're probably going to wait, white has the 2 Bs here. White should just be much better, right? I mean, it looks like white should be much better. But black has a very nasty idea, which is that in this position, he plays this move f6 with the idea of playing d5 to build the classic big black center. Now we get to move castles, and we have the move bishop e6, b3, and d5. Now this has been played before. It's pretty rare, but it was played by the current world #2 player in the world, Fabiano Caruana, and the World Blitz last year in Uzbekistan, so it should not come as a complete surprise to Ding. That being said, let's look at the time. Gukesh is moving instantly once again, and we have Ding using his merry time. So with Ding being down 30 minutes on the clock so early here, it could bode very poorly as we're only on move number 9. So now we get the move bishop to a3 here, and here we have the move castles being played, and Ding plays rook c1. Now Gukesh plays move a5. This is maybe the first moment where Gukesh is out of prep, but I actually like the setup that Ding has come up with here, because what Ding is going for is Ding wants to use the dark square B on the long diagonal, but also he has the rook on the C file and maybe play on this long light square diagonal as well. So now we get to move a5. Here Ding plays move knight e1, and this is a move that the computer doesn't actually love. It wants to play a very provocative move, knight to h4, putting the knight on the rim in this position. And the idea is here that if black plays something like rook e8 to guard the knight, now you can play f4, potentially opening up the center of the board. And if black goes e4, you get something like takes, and I believe d3, and now all of the diagonals are opening up. So this is a very unnatural move for a human to play, because you're also running into g5 here. You're provoking black to take even more space on the board, and when you combine that with putting a knight on the rim, the knight is very dim potentially. So we get the move knight to e1 being played here, and now Gukesh plays rook to e8, a logical move, breaking the pin on the diagonal and moving the rook to the center of the board. Now we got this move f4, and this is a move that I actually love from Ding here, because it's very easy to look at the clock and think, you know what, I'm down 16 minutes on the clock, maybe I should play it safe here and make a draw. One way that white could have played to try and be very safe here is to go d4, e4, and now we get to move f3, and after e takes f3, bishop takes f3. The position is pretty stable here. White has the 2 Bs on the diagonals. However, the black center is very, very secure as well, so the position is probably balanced. Now, that being said, I would say objectively, I would probably prefer to be white here, but again, it's easier for me to say that sitting in the comfort of my own home versus playing the game live. Now, Ding plays move f4 here, and the reason I really like this choice is because after f4, pawn takes pawn. Now we are going to get an imbalance in the pawn structure. Black will no longer have a big black center here. However, in this position, Black will no longer have big black center, but white's pawns will also be a little bit imbalanced. So with this imbalance in the center of the board here, the position can become very complex. So after e takes f4, we got this move rook takes f4 being played by Ding. G takes f4 is potentially a move. However, after knight to a6 here with this idea of knight b4, let's just say white plays a move like d3. Now after knight to f5, queen to d2, and d4, suddenly black creates this bastion on e3 and white is in a lot of trouble. And if you try to play the other way with e3, there's knight b4. If you try to guard with rook a1, avoiding hanging the pawn, now you lose this one. And if you play bishop takes knight, pawn takes, suddenly a2 is very weak. And after rook c2 here, I believe black can still just take and play a move like rook to a3, followed by b6 and c5. You have these big weaknesses on the queen side. You're not really able to push these pass pawns, or push the pawns in the center, I should say, up the board. So after e takes f4, we get the move rook takes f4, and now Gukesh plays the move pawn takes pawn, and here we get the move b takes c4 being played. Now this is a move that is a little bit surprising from the time usage standpoint. If we look at the situation here, Gukesh is up 25 minutes on the clock here. Ding is getting low on time, but Ding spends 12 minutes on this move versus simply playing pawn takes pawn. So he spends 12 minutes. He should have played this right away. The game continues with knight g6, and now we get to move rook to e4. Now, one thing that's interesting about chess is that there are a lot of these great new ideas that computers have shown us, which we never would have considered in the past. Very specifically, let's say black goes knight g6 here. You play rook to d4, and after queen b6 e3, you've played a classic rook lift here to the center of the board. Very unnatural and weird. Michael Botvinnik, the famous founder of the Russian school or the Soviet school of chess, he would be rolling in his grave at this idea, because frankly, these rook lifts to the center of the board, you don't do this. This just isn't chess. But 3,700 plus computers have shown us time and time again that there are a lot of these very new and fresh ideas that really make chess exciting. So we get pawn takes pawn, knight g6, and here Ding plays rook e4, going for the classic rook lift to the center. We get the move knight a6, and now we have the move knight c2. Now, one thing that really strikes me about these moves, b takes c4 and knight c2, is that Ding is spending entirely way too much time on these moves. He is down to 42 minutes on move number 17. He has to make 23 moves in 42 minutes. Not a straightforward position, no clear moves or ideas here, and it should spell trouble for Ding. So we get queen to c7, and here Ding plays knight d4, bishop f7, and now we get the move d3. Gukesh goes knight e5, and now Ding plays this move knight to f3 after a 7-minute thing. Now this move, I understand the reasoning behind it. I'll tell you why this was played. The reason that Ding played knight f3 here is that he's getting low on time, and when you simplify a position and you're playing without increment, your moves and plans become a lot easier. So we get knight to f3, and now we get knight to d7 from Gukesh, and this is a move that you can perceive as being a great choice or a horrible choice depending on your point of view. Now, on the one hand, is obviously not the best move here. The computer prefers bishop g6, rook to f4, and then knight b4 here. I actually think there's great potential here for black to claim an advantage with these knights in the middle of the board and all kinds of sacks, or queen b6 on the diagonal, and it feels a little bit shaky for the player with the white pieces. Now, the reason that Gukesh plays knight d7 instead is that he's probably thinking, you know what, I'm up 25 minutes on the clock here. I'm playing someone who's been shaky when he's low on time, and I keep all the pieces on the board. So from a practical standpoint, if I do that, it should increase the chance of me being able to win the game. So now we get the move rook takes, and we get the move rook to b1, and this is a very, very serious error from Liren. What Ding should have played here was the move queen to d2 or the move bishop b2. Now, just to show you guys a line, if queen d2 b5 occurs very similar to the game, after takes, check, king f1 takes, and bishop b2. If black were to take the juicer here, you have bishop d4 attacking the queen, the bishop, and the pawn at the same time. When black moves the queen to guard the bishop, now you take. If black were to take on e2, after king g1, the knight, the bishop are hanging. There's rook to e1 as well to win the rook on e8, and black is in all kinds of trouble. So now back to the game. The reason rook b1 is a very bad move here is after b5 takes queen b6, king f1, and takes. Now when Ding plays the move bishop b2 and we get bishop takes a2, worth pointing out, by the way, that in this position what Ding should have played was queen d2 to avoid opening up the long diagonal here, but alas, he doesn't do it. After we get takes, and bishop b2, bishop takes a2, and bishop d4. Now Gukesh has a chance to move the queen or a knight to c5, whatever he wishes to do. Now the main reason for that is the bishop on a2 is not under attack from the queen on d2, so he can move the queen anywhere or he can block with a knight. Now, one of the drawbacks of this position for Gukesh is that we're in a situation where there is one move where he is winning the game. If he doesn't play that one move, he is probably not even better. So it's a very dicey situation here. It's one of the reasons that when we talk about chess at the top level, most often the players aim for a 2-result game, meaning that they have a draw in hand or they're playing for a win. Basically, if their opponent finds all the right moves, the opponent draws the game. If the opponent makes a blunder, you will win the game, but there is no counterplay, there are no tricks whatsoever. But in this situation, that is not the case. If Gukesh finds the right move here, he will go on to win this game and become the world champion, in my opinion. If he misses it, the match remains very much in the balance. So here we got the move knight a c5, and this is a very, very serious mistake from Gukesh. Now, I don't blame Gukesh for playing this move, but I think this is a situation of nerves playing a huge role. When you look at this position, Gukesh is up a pawn here on the queen side. He has 2 passed pawns to push, and he's up 30 minutes on the clock. So with 30 extra minutes, 2 pawns on the queen side, he's got to know that he's in good shape to potentially win the game, and he simply tries to find the move that he thinks is best, which is knight c5. Now, do I fault him? Not at all, because the main reason that knight dc5 is better than the a knight is after rook c1, let's just say black were to play a move like rook c8 to highlight it, we get queen c2, bishop f7, and knight d2. Now black can play the move queen to d8, attacking the bishop on d4 here. Whereas in this line with knight a c5, like in the game, after we get rook c1, let's just say black plays the move bishop to f7, queen c2, and rook c8 here. Now white can play a move like bishop to h3 potentially, and you'll notice that in this situation there's no queen to d8 here because the bishop is simply not under attack on d4. So this would have been a huge thing to go for, to play this move knight d to c5. I do believe in my heart of hearts that if Gukesh played this move, he would have won, simply because white has no tactics on the knight here. Let's just say queen c2, or not queen, sorry, rook c1 here. You get bishop f7 and knight d2, for example. You can go queen d6 as well to hit the bishop. And after bishop f2 and bishop h5, now there's pressure here. Even frankly, a4, a3, b4, b3. Gukesh can try to push P here. All roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to a big dub. Plus, you add in the time advantage. I think there is zero chance that Ding could ever save the game. Instead, we get knight a c5. Now Ding plays rook c1, and we get the move bishop to b3 being played. This is a mistake as well, but frankly, at this point, it's already very tough to play because if you go rook c8 to guard the knight, after queen to d2, let's just say bishop to e6, for example, white can play bishop f2, and this is actually going to lead to something very, very similar to the game, so I won't go more in depth on this specific line. Now, if black were to play b4, queen c2, and b3, trying to push P, after queen to b2 here, it's very tricky. Black is still better after knight a4, queen a3, and queen b4, but frankly, even this line with knight d2 feels very shaky because if you go b2, I can sack the bishop, and then I play rook c2, and I'm going to win one of these pieces. Black is still better, but the chances of winning are very low. Now, of course, very easy with a computer to see these lines. In a human game, do I think these will be played? Very, very unlikely. So that's why we get bishop b3. And now Ding plays the move queen e1. Now, what I cannot stress enough is how remarkable Ding's intuition has been when he has gotten low on time in these games. When we go back to this position right here, let's look at this position. You feel like he's in dire straits. He's down to 16 minutes here. All roads lead to a dub for Gukesh. It feels like he's going to crack and fall apart, but he keeps it together here. And what I mean by that is he plays queen e1 relatively quickly, which is the best move in the position. You might think, well, can't black take with this pin here and win the game? Because if you take, you lose the queen with check and you resign. If you take the pawn, there's queen c3 here. Bishop attacks the queen attacks the bishop and the knight, and now white is completely winning. So queen e1 is also very useful because with the queen on e1, you can go to f2, whereas if you were to play queen d2, there's no queen e3 to line up even more pressure on this diagonal. So we get queen e1. Gukesh plays the move bishop to e6, and now we get the move queen f2, rook c8, and the move bishop e3 played almost instantly. Now, all these moves are the absolute best moves according to the computer. Queen e1, queen f2, and bishop e3, and here we get the move rook c7. Now, if black were to play b4, this would lose the game because you have d4 here, and you'll lose either the knight or the rook at the end of the board based on what you play, and with it you'll be down a horse and you'll resign. So here Gukesh plays rook c7, and now Ding plays this move knight d4 pretty quickly once again. Keep in mind, with 10 moves still to get to move 40 in time control, this move is very understandable, but it is in fact not the right move. Now if I should say if Ding had 30 plus minutes in this situation, I think there's a good chance he could have used the time and maybe found the winning variation with knight to e1, although even here I think it's frankly very unlikely, because the reason knight e1 makes sense is you'd love to play something like d4 and then d5 here, but the rook takes rook will come with a check, so you cannot capture the queen. Whereas when you play the move knight to e1, let's say we get a4 here after d4, knight a6, d5. Now rook takes rook is not a check because the knight shields the king, and now you will win some material, either the queen or this bishop on e6. So knight e1 would have been a winning move from Ding. Just to show you guys the line, the way it goes here is, let's say black plays bishop f7, you have bishop f4 to attack the rook. If you go back, there's d4 and the pin plays. If you go rook to a7 here, now I play bishop h3, lining up more pins potentially. And now let's just say black plays, I don't know, like a4. After bishop takes knight, knight takes bishop e3, you win something on the diagonal. If black were to play, I don't know, rook b7, you have bishop e3, rook c7, you trade, win the knight, and win the game as well. So knight to e1 would have been winning, but frankly I think it's very unlikely. Oh, one last line I want to show you guys, by the way, is after knight to e1, knight to e1, what was the move? I think it was bishop to f7, bishop f4. There is knight to e5 here, but after knight to e5, white can play d4, forking D's knights. If you go knight g4, I can simply take the rook, attacking the queen. You take, I play rook takes knight, and again you're simply missing a lot of material. Instead, we get knight to d4 being played, which is also a good move from Ding. It's the much more human move, especially with limited time. We have bishop f7, knight c6. Here, Gukesh sacks the rook with takes, and now we get the move h6. Now, we've had a lot of transformations here. Black has a knight and a pawn in return for the rook. Now, the computer, of course, as you can tell from the evaluation bar, thinks that white is completely winning, but in a human game, it is still very difficult to play. And frankly, to prove, I don't think that in human play, even Magnus could probably prove that this is a serious advantage. Main reason for that is that black has these two connected pawns, you're pushing p, and the white king is potentially a little bit vulnerable to checks like queen h1, or if you run to d2, there are ideas like queen d5 and queen a2. So here we got the move king e1. Gukesh plays b4, we got queen to d4, and now we have the move knight to e5, and here we get this move king to d2. Now, it's at this point the computer, for the last time in the game, will give Ding potentially a big advantage here. He could have played this move queen to f4 here, or queen to e3, I should say, followed by bishop d4, trying to create a bit of a wooden shield potentially here with the bishop on the diagonals, but it really is hard to play, and at this point, the players still haven't reached time control, so I don't fault Ding for missing it. So we get the move king d2, queen g2, and now we have queen to f2. Important, by the way, that you play queen f2. If you play a move like bishop d6, for example, there's knight to f3, creating the fork of the king and the queen, and it's spaghetti-o time, and you resign the game. So we get queen f2, queen d5, queen d4, queen g2, queen f2, queen d5, queen d4. And I was actually recording a recap on my live stream at the time that this occurred. I was sure the game would end in a draw, and then Gukesh decides to ruin everything by playing the move queen a2. How inconsiderate of Gukesh to play this move rather than taking a draw. Now, what I think Gukesh was thinking about when he did this was obviously not my recap, but more likely he thought that there was no risk of him losing this position. So if you're in a situation where you think you can never lose the game, there's no reason not to continue. So we get rook c2, queen e6. Now Ding plays queen d8 check, king h7, and queen takes a5. And you might be thinking here that white has a rook for a knight, same number of pawns, 4 pawns for each side. Rook should be better than knight. White maybe is winning, but white actually is not winning here because, first of all, this is a passed pawn going down the board, but also your king is very weak here, and there are a lot of open diagonals here to try to attack this king on d2, even though it looks like it might be very safe. So we get rook c1. Gukesh plays queen d5, and now Ding plays queen to b4, and here we get this very tricky move queen g2 being played by Gukesh. Now, very similar to before where he played this queen g2, queen d5 yo-yo. Because of this infiltration with queen g2, ideas like knight f3 and bishop h5, this is where Ding decides, you know what, I'm happy to make the draw. Maybe I had a chance to win. I was also losing. Let's just keep it simple and go for the classic Ding chilling draw. So what Ding plays here is queen to e4 check, forcing the queens off the board. We get takes b2, rook to b1, and now Gukesh plays the move bishop a2, attacking the tower. If you move the rook, black queens, you take, and now you're down a horse and losing the game. And so we get this move, rook takes pawn. Gukesh plays knight c4, and now we get king c3, knight takes b2, and here Gukesh simply offers a draw, as after king takes knight, bishop c3, let's just say here, takes and king d4, same number of pawns on the board, but much more importantly, opposite color bishops here, meaning the game will end in a draw. So in this position, after we get king to c, actually after we get knight takes b2, the game ends in a draw, meaning the players are still tied 4-4 after 8 games. This game is very choppy and chaotic. I think that when I look at this game overall, I feel like Ding might be a little bit unhappy at a missed opportunity, perhaps, but overall, the big loser today is definitely Gukesh. This is the second game in a row where he was completely winning. He was winning on the board. He was up 30 minutes on the clock, and it really feels to me like in this match, it's going to come down to, can Ding continue to hang on? If Ding can hang on tomorrow, get to the next rest day with one extra white game left in the match, I think that he's going to be maybe not the favorite, but he's going to have a very good chance. It really just feels me like at this point for Gukesh, it's getting more and more frustrating. And the longer he lets Ding hang around with these draws, these miracles, the more likely it is that sooner or later the old Ding is going to find his form, or Ding will show up and win a game somewhere. So for Gukesh, I could only be unhappy with what's going on. There's really no upside to this. I mean, you should be happy to draw with black, but it's 2 games in a row where he's had the chance to win. I firmly believe if he won either yesterday or today, Ding would probably fall apart because he would have to change his style and start to take bigger risks, giving Gukesh more chances to win. But alas, it is not meant to be. So for Ding, great save again. He's continued to hang in there in spite of it all. For Gukesh, a huge disappointment. Definitely for the Indian fans out there as well, they have to be somewhat disappointed because I know they're definitely rooting for him to win this match, and every day it feels like it becomes more and more nervy. At any rate, it's been a great match so far. It's been full of drama, a lot of twists and turns. Just when you thought it was a draw, it's not a draw. All sorts of stuff going on. So it's going to be exciting as we head into the home stretch. Tomorrow, of course, will be game number 9. Gukesh will have the white pieces against Ding. We will be doing a recap after that game, but that is going to be it for today. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this recap from the 8th round of the 2024 FIDE World Championship being held in Singapore. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with some more great recaps and content, press conferences, and everything else in the very near future, or more likely in the next day. So I'll see you guys soon. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.